I found out, and I was told and found out that Lions are celebrating their 90th year as a franchise this
big 90.
season. The big 9-0. They're gonna have a commemorative patch. And Braylon, you have a list of some things that happened 90 years ago, some anniversaries.
Yeah, hold on. Before I get to the list, what about this patch? How are we feeling about this patch? Because to me, does the coloring look a little off?
Coloring does look a little off.
Looks like the patch is a little lighter than the actual stitching around the numbers.
Yeah, it's not a very attractive, aesthetically pleasing patch, and I don't know if they should be having a patch of their 90 seasons on any jersey because they are the worst.
What are they celebrating?
They're celebrating being the worst franchise in all of American team sports. Fletch, what do you got?
Doesn't that patch go where their captain's patch is supposed to go, or am I wrong?
I do not know that one.
I mean, they'll figure it out, but by the time the season starts, that's what I'm hoping happens with this patch. Look, I don't want to be too beating up on the patch when it's only April 12th or 13th, whatever the hell the day is. But that's a patch they got to work on. They got to work on that patch, man.
They absolutely got to work on that patch.
Come on, Detroit. Y'all doing a lot of things right. This patch ain't one of them. I need you to get this patch together before we get to September. But here we go.
Yes.
90 years ago, what did 1933 look like? Well, the president was, I want to say, FDR. I knew that off the top of my head. What else we got? Monthly rent was $18.
Oh, Jesus.
$18 was monthly rent.
Damn.
Gas. Talking about how expensive gas is. 10 cents a gallon was what gas was. We were in one of the worst years of the Depression. Oh, but guess what? The repeal of Prohibition.
Ooh.
Started serving alcohol again. That was good for those guys that were struggling on the job. Larry King was born. Willie Nelson was born. Yoko Ono, Boo, was born. Michael Caine, if you love Batman, that's Alfred. And Volkswagen was launched. Japan created the shotgun. And yeah, I think that is what happened 90 years ago. Oh, and the New York Giants, baseball New York Giants, won the World Series.
New York Giants.
Baseball
Back
New
when they
York
were at
Giants.
the Polo Grounds. I'm sure Maz was
Look
there.
at you, the Polo Grounds.
And as someone who's a big Beatles fan, I second boo to Yoko Ono.
She wrecked the Beatles, and then she wrecked John Lennon.
She absolutely did.
So,
no
boo
doubt.
to Yoko Ono.
No doubt about it. And obviously the Detroit Lions as a franchise
they
have
existed
been,
too. My apologies.
Yes, have been they've been the worst franchise in all of American team sports. I know they had a run in the 50s, but when we talk about football nowadays, we talk about the Super Bowl era. In the Super Bowl era, the Lions have won exactly one playoff game in 1991. It's been awful. There's not a whole lot to celebrate within the 90 years, but I'll tell you what, there might be something to celebrate this season because this is looking like it could potentially be one of the best Lions seasons ever if everything turns out the way that we hope that it would, with all of the additions that were made in free agency, with all of the draft picks and whatnot that basically panned out to be potential stars. Braylon, can the Lions celebrate their 90th year in style with, at the very least, an emoticon of success, whatever it means to you?
Look, I just want to throw something out there. I want to put this in perspective. Like before you move forward, sometimes you got to address, what has been the past, what is.
Yeah.
Do you realize, to put perspective on one playoff win since 1957?
Yes.
One playoff win since 1957. The Carolina Panthers came into existence 1995. Was it 94? 94 or 95. I'm off by one or I'm right on point. They have 9 playoff wins. They came into existence. Came into existence almost 70 years after you. And they have 9 playoff wins. To answer your question, Flannel Sam, this could be a special 90th year. You see what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have done. Look, we keep talking about it. Like to talk about what they've done is to beat a dead horse. But the team believes in it as well. You saw the players. They're already here. Players are already ready to get down. They're already ready to work out. Players are back at their homes. They've been here early. Last year they talked about it. Tracy Walker came on the show and said the reason why I signed so early and I came back to Detroit in February, I'm ready to get after it. Dan Campbell has these guys buying in. That's the next step. We know who's coming here now. We know Emmanuel Moses is coming here. We know C.J. Gardner-Johnson's coming here. We know that Cam Sutton's coming here. We know the players that are coming. We know what's being set up, but they want to be here. They want to be here. They're already here. They're grinding. They're getting after it. They're getting their footwork together, getting their chemistry together. Guys are learning in restaurants. Guys are going out with other guys. That's the next step. And I think they take that step this year. I mean, the draft. We haven't even got to the draft. I mean, just look at all the mock drafts we've seen. Now, it's never going to go as any mock draft predicts. But all the mock drafts, with the exception of 1 or 2, have been great mock drafts. They've all looked like good mock drafts. So I think, man, 90, it's a special year. It's an even number. It's a round number. It's a big one. Why not make it the best one?
This is the most hope I've ever really seen around a Lions team, pretty much in my lifetime, even more than during the 2014 season with, obviously, Matthew Stafford, Calvin, and Ndamukong Suh. This is the most hope I've seen because the 2022 draft, the previous year, was probably the best draft in Lions history. This last offseason, this one we're in right now, is the best offseason in Detroit Lions history, arguably, one that I can think of. And we look at all of that. Last year they were 9-8. Obviously, 9-8 as a whole isn't a whole lot to write home about, but for the Lions, considering how they started, considering how they finished the season on an 8-2 run, it's a big deal. Their offense was pretty much elite all year, 4th in scoring. In the last 10 games, their defense was 7th in scoring. They solidify their secondary. They have another draft coming up. They upgrade at running back. They have an elite offensive line. You bring back their quarterback. You bring back Amon-Ra St. Brown. You bring back Ben Johnson. You bring back Aaron Glenn. And, of course, Jameson Williams, this is going to be his de facto rookie season.
Year.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. So the sky is the limit for this team. I'm irrationally excited. I'm very excited.
It really is, and I'll expound on that a little bit. But before that, the Jacksonville Jaguars came into existence the same time as the Carolina Panthers. They have 8 playoff wins, and they have 3 AFC Championship appearances. The Carolina Panthers have 3 AFC Championship appearances and 2 Super Bowl appearances. Ooh. 2 Super Bowl appearances, and should have won the first one.
Yes,
like Jake Delhomme. That was one of the underrated Super Bowl quarterback performances. Anyway, going back to last year, you really had to take your hat off to the Detroit Lions, players and coaches for what they endured and how they finished. 8-2 is special, and the reason why it's so special is everybody ain't doing it. The only time it's ever been done in history in the NFL is 1972. It's the Arizona Cardinals or St. Louis Cardinals, one of the two. It's the only time it's ever seen a finish like that in the last 10 games. They start off 1-6. And this is coming off a season that they were 3-13-1. Do you know how hard it is to get up for games when you suck? Like, do you know, like
I'm
that? I'm
sure you know.
Like that. Oh hell yeah, Cleveland. The depression where you know you suck going into the season, but you've done everything to try to get right, and then you go into the first game. You're optimistic. It's like, we had a good off season. We had a good training camp. Like, let's go. We picked up some players. And then you lose the first game. Then you lose the second game. Then you lose the third game. Then you win one randomly. Then you lose and then you lose. You're like, well, we're the same team from last year. I don't want to play anymore. So to have that in those players' mind and still get them in the last 10 games of the season to go from 1-6 to 8-2, to get them to play for Dan Campbell, to get them to play for each other, to get them to stay buying in, to stay focused, to keep your eye on the prize, which is one of the most cliche things of all time, until you see it work. So to finish a season like that, and then to be told because of idiots in the Seattle and Rams game that you're not even going to make the playoffs, regardless if you win or not, and to still go out there and bust Aaron Rodgers' ass in Green Bay, his last time playing for the Green Bay Packers, I'm sold, and I'm ready to see what they're going to do this year. This is definitely going to be the year that they step out the shadow.
Yeah, it was enough motivation for them, even though they had no shot at making the playoffs anymore, to knock Aaron Rodgers out, who's been their number one nemesis for the past decade plus.
Yeah, him and Brett Favre, same team.
Yeah, and to have a winning record. And that was enough of a consolation prize for them last year because they knew what they were building. JB, I gotta ask you, because I know you are optimistic yet realistic. Is this 90th year of the Detroit Lions, this going to be a special one for the Lions?
I think it will be, even though the patch does need some work. I would definitely say that it's a little too old school for me. I think this year will be something special. First, everything needs to fall into place first. First, we start with the draft. Free agency, I believe Brad Holmes nailed that 100%. Then it's a draft, then moving on from the season and training camp and everything like that. So I think this could be the year. I mean, I've already got my money on it already. I'm already claiming them right now. NFC North champions and NFC champions as well.
Well, here's the big question. Should we follow in your footsteps, or are you just a degenerate gambler?
I mean, I'll tell you up front, I'm a degenerate gambler 100%. So you can follow me if you want to, but just know if it hits, hey, I'm going to be making bank that day.
But you're not crazy, though. If you're going to put your team on any team in the NFC, the Lions might be the best value. We coined, or I'm not going to take credit for it. On Big D Energy, a term was coined that is now on a t-shirt, stoked, not scared. because I know
Not scared. Stoked, not scared. Stoked, not scared.
There you
Stoked,
go.
not scared.
Stoked, not scared.
And I know that having these kind of expectations where people are talking about them, I think they have the 4th highest odds to win the NFC.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
People need to chill out. Like, but part of that too is Vegas. Vegas will set you up. Like Vegas want Detroit to spend all their money and bet on them, and then they'll drop it as well. So be careful. Some of that stuff is miss you guys, because the fact that they don't have Seattle on there, like Seattle didn't go to the playoffs last year. Like Seattle doesn't have a pick before us in the draft. Like Seattle doesn't have a great team that they're building around now. And then also they also didn't even have who's the other NFC team they didn't have? The Vikings. Although we know. Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, well, the thing about, and you're right about the Seahawks. The Seahawks, in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say mirrored the Lions, but they had a great draft, too. They got K9. They got a couple offensive line pieces. They got Tariq Woolen. And they have a lot of the same issues that the Lions had with their scoring defense and the run defense, and they could address that with Jalen Carter. And they have 2 great wide receivers. They have Geno Smith coming off his best year ever. So the Seahawks are a threat as well. But the Lions, I don't even want to think about this. Just imagine how deflated we would all be if they sort of regress to the mean and win 6, 7, or 8 games.
But here's the thing, and I've been hearing that, and you're right. Like to be deflated, like to have this energy. Like I didn't even play for the Lions, and I got this energy. I mean, you see what I'm wearing? I'm wearing Jets, but I have this energy because I'm from Detroit, and I've never seen it like this. They can't go back. Like that's always the question. I've posed that as well to Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, what happens if they regress? What happens if they go backwards? What happens if you get the Detroit Lion build you up and then drop you on your ass or drop you on your face? I just don't see them going back. Like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have set up the structural integrity of this team too well. And you got guys, you see the guys that are coming into the Detroit Lions, just look at their press conferences. Look outside there. Those guys want to come work. David Montgomery said, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to get after it. Cam Sutton said the same thing. Mosley said he's here to prove himself. Like when you see that type of energy, I can't see it going backwards.
And I'll tell you what, it is good to know that Braylon Edwards, you are stoked, not scared. You are part of the club, and 100%. I appreciate that. You just confirmed that with your comments.